Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Reports. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and Matt Goddard, somewhere in an airport.
I am indeed, Malcolm. Can you guess which airport and where?
I can because
That's not a guess, is it, if you know the answer?
You told me the other day. So you're in Gatwick, and you're
I
going
am
somewhere
indeed.
very sunny. That is
Gatwick North. But having woken up this morning in Liverpool, so it's been a trains, planes, and a brief bit of automobile. So very John Candy of me.
That's right, absolutely. So we will find out later on in the show where you are off to, for sure. But first, we need to get into our property news. Okay, so first up in our property news, because you haven't heard enough about the budget last week, we're going to talk about the budget last week. Not for a long time, though, because, we're not a political show. But a couple of interesting kind of talking points. I think the biggest takeout for me was that it didn't break anything just yet, from what I can tell. There's some things that are a little bit bad, some things that are a little bit good, but nothing that's going to completely sink the industry. So that's a plus, right?
It has to be, doesn't it? I think the plus is that we can talk about this very briefly and move on. It's just, I think we felt we'd appear like we didn't know what we were doing if we didn't mention the budget in passing before moving on to some other interesting. Actually, it's been quite quiet on property, hasn't it? We just want to get onto the tech news. But I do. There's obviously all the rumours and murmurings, and London's still been hit pretty hard, hasn't it, with things like the mansion tax coming along, and also the additions in terms of landlords and the income that's going to come onto the tax on their income. But as you say, not necessarily had an immediate reaction the way that a lot of the jungle drums were going.
Yeah, and historic budgets where almost as soon as the chancellor has kind of sat down, then there is a massive outcry for U-turns and relentless pressure and all that sort of stuff. My biggest fear, to be quite honest with you, was that actually it was going to be they were going to announce something, and then for the next 3 months there was going to be a constant drumbeat of like, you've got to turn back, you've got to U-turn, and then they'd U-turn, and then essentially it would be like April before we could actually get on with doing anything sensible in the country. So good news, we now know where we are. We know the worst of it, and we've got the next year to crack on and just
I think was the biggest news of it that the OBR managed to publish it by mistake well in advance of being announced in the Commons.
Yeah, but apparently today, and so we're recording this 1st of December evening. It's about 6:20, and so the head of the OBR has resigned like about half an hour ago because he's taken the rap for it. But it turns out that actually it was hacked. And apparently it's not the first time it's been hacked. It looked like that IP address that had managed to get in at 5 a.m. in the morning off the budget had tried loads of times before and potentially might have had access to previous statements and therefore been able to, do some funky stuff in the market, to kind of like, sell stuff or buy stuff and all that sort of thing. So yes, that is going to be the story that's going to continue to run, I think, is that actually, the security of the OBR is not very good.
And it's good old-fashioned hacking as well, rather than someone using Claude code to hack away like we've got later on in the show.
Exactly, yeah. They've just been basically kept punching it until it broke.
Yeah. What were you doing at 5 a.m. on that morning?
I was out on a run, okay? You've got nothing on me, copper, nothing.
Yeah, it's going to say 4:56 is your normal wake-up time, isn't it? So it's just in time for you to start hacking away.
Listen, circumstantial, that's what I'm saying. So that, so the budget, obviously, as Matt says, there's some mansion tax stuff, which is going to hit £2 million plus properties and £5 million plus properties, an annual fee on top of what your all the other taxes that you're paying, but yes, didn't feel like it was a crippling amount. Yes, just at the margin, is your property worth 1.95 million versus 2.1? That's going to be a little bit problematic. It is a tax on wealth, and therefore, actually you may not have the money because the property might be worth 2.1 million, but actually how much money have you got to kind of pay it? That's potentially problematic. But I think broadly speaking, most people I spoke to heaving a bit of a sigh of relief afterwards that actually, yes, she hadn't broken everything. So bravo, that's probably expectation management achieved. So well done her. All right, we are moving on and away from that, and we're going to talk about Alto again. So Alto, we've spoken a few times over recent weeks that actually it seems to have something of a Damascene conversion from being ridiculously hard to integrate with and expensive, and basically something that as a PropTech partner, you just didn't want to go anywhere near, into suddenly this warm, cuddly, open-armed CRM system that everybody is integrating with. And this time it is Third Fort and their AML, isn't it, Matt?
It is, and Third Fort are pretty well established now, although they're quite newcomers on the block in terms of anti-money laundering. They're sort of backed by the likes of Knight Frank, Savills, and have built pretty significant integrations already with other CRMs. But I think what's really interesting with this one, as you say, that Alto are getting those positioning pieces done now with a lot of the CRMs, the partners. But more importantly, this seems to form part of Keyflow, which is their Alto's connected consumer portal that's uniting communication, signing, and compliance all in one place. So not only is it Third Fort coming into the Alto partnership system, but also Alto seems to have a new offering that I expect is probably replacing, or at least a part replacing their property file that was sort of brought in from Dupix previously. So some strong partnerships coming through there. Obviously, Alto was sort of very driven in this space, and I'm sure there'll be more to follow this one.
Yeah. I'm really interested actually in the fact that this, again, historically had not seemed to be very much of a forward-thinking organization. They kind of tried to railroad everybody into having Alto and kind of binned Dupix for a while, and then everyone was like, "No, we really want Dupix back." So then they kind of brought that back a bit. So it felt like it was a little bit sort of kind of all over the place for a while. But yeah, it feels like the new kind of director of partnerships and the new kind of outlook seems to have certainly improved its appeal, and certainly improved the fact that it feels like it's much more, it's going to be around 2026 2027 actually doing things that, rather than every agent that I speak to is on it thinking when can we get off and who should we be on instead. So yeah, look, fair play to them. I think it is something that is going to stand them in good stead, and I think the more that everybody feels that they can plug in, the more it's going to be sticky for their agents as well, right? Okay, so third story in our property news this week. So Rightmove is trialing a new renovation tool. So quite interesting. Obviously, maybe a little bit of their 18 million that they have ring fenced for some of the AI spend, but this is provided by a third party, by a partner. But essentially, what it allows you to do is to estimate the cost of your renovations. Now, I haven't played around with this one, but it sounds good. Sounds interesting. Sounds like they're doing something in an AI space that might actually be consumer friendly.
Well, that's it. And it's going down that route of do you build yourself, do you partner, or do you acquire, and to sort of get yourself further ahead. And in this instance, as you say, they've gone and partnered, for now at least, with the company who could be able to take those floor plans, look at the sort of size of them, and estimate what the renovation cost might be for key rooms such as kitchens and bathrooms. So it's certainly one of those things that probably people will add as they're browsing the property and think, this room's maybe a bit tired. What cost to take that property and actually improve it? So I'm sure there'll be some interesting people playing with it. Whether or not it actually gets utilised more than that will be a factor to watch, won't it?
Yeah. I think as with many of these things, if you're just kind of plugging AI in as a feature, kind of an additional feature, rather than making it kind of the guts of the product, I think that's always, it just feels a little bit like kind of papering over stuff. But yeah, look, at least there's some movement there, and it's going to be interesting to see what else they pull through. This is provided in particular by Build Partner. Obviously gives them a good story as well. But yeah, remains to be seen whether this is an integrated type of AI strategy, or if it's just some window dressing to stop some of the more negative comments that they've had recently. But that is Rightmove's renovation tool. That is the end of our property news this week. So let us get stuck in to our AI and tech news. So first of all, we should kind of give a big happy birthday to ChatGPT. 3 years ago, yesterday, on the 30th of November, was when it dropped ChatGPT 3, the 0.5 version, and essentially everything changed. Now, not immediately, obviously. It took a little while for everybody to go, but yeah, that's the 30th of November 2022 was the date that ChatGPT dropped its chat bot, and yeah, from then on, pretty much all of the kind of tech development that's happened since has really happened underpinned by this by AI, by neural nets, by the discovery that actually this is a really helpful tool. Matt, can you remember what you were doing 3 years ago?
On the 30th of November 2022. I do, because I had a particular project just going live, and we were deeply in the mix on those when you have a large enterprise project going in the mix. But it's interesting, isn't it, that even 3 years is a long time, but at the same time, it doesn't seem that far ago for something to become so integral in our everyday life, and for people to be so on the bus talking about I'm going to ChatGPT that as part of the normal lexicon, and just, well, I guess everything that sits alongside it with other foundational models, I don't think would be as prevalent if it wasn't for people being as aware of ChatGPT.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it has changed. Yeah, as you say, the kind of vocabulary that everybody uses, it's changed how people think about stuff. Every agent I speak to now, has a notion of AI and what they are using it in their personal lives or in professionally as well. So yeah, it's had a real kind of revolutionary effect on a lot of processes, people, etc. And yeah, if you look at how that then has underpinned, even things like Google's development, and we'll talk in a sec about Claude and Perplexity and things like that. So it has heralded a significant change in how we look at technology. And yeah, it's just, if we look back in 3 years' time, when we'll still be on this podcast, Matt, wonder what we'll be looking at then. How it will have all changed again. But yes, it really, really exciting that it's obviously that happened back then, and obviously what is coming even just in the next 12 months is going to be phenomenal. So that was ChatGPT's anniversary. We should probably just also talk a little bit about Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT's parent, and his device. So he and Johnny Ive, the guy who designed the iPhone, which is now so Ive's business is now part of OpenAI. It was taken over for some billions recently. They're building a device that is supposed to be essentially your AI kind of wearable, and almost as the iPhone is to mobile internet, so this device is going to be to AI. And Altman's given us a few more clues as to what it's going to be like, right?
That's it. And the thing that grabbed my attention, and probably quite rightly so, is Sam Altman's comment in a podcast. Must have been for him to say it in the way he did. He's so excited about it, and it lands so perfectly for him that he wants to lick it or take a bite out of it. That was genuinely his words, and I'm a little lost for words, but it must be quite incredible for him to be coming along with that turn of phrase, right? When was the last time you wanted to lick something or take a bite out of it, Mal, with relation to technology?
Relation to technology, a very, very long time ago. So yeah, no, look, I agree with you. I think it's very random. I mean, he is the king of hype, right? When it comes to sort of AI and stuff like that, there are a few who have stretched themselves, with the possible exception of Elon Musk, who constantly pretends that full autonomous driving is here.
But he's allegedly off his nut, though, so we can sort of let Musk leave him to one side. Altman seems to be a bit more of a sober individual in those respects.
Quite, yes. I'm impressed that you've used the word allegedly there, because
you've schooled me on this, so I have to make sure I do it. Or did I even say it? Have you dropped this into the post-production?
No, you did. You absolutely did. But yes, so Altman is out there, yes, hyping this up. Don't know when it's going to drop. Don't know what it is. It's all very kind of secret squirrel. But yeah, it should be. I imagine it's going to be something that a sizable proportion of people will want to use just because of where it's come from. But yes, whether it is actually as default or as cool or as fun as he seems to think, or as chewy or tasty.
You get those really smooth, like Zen stones. They're really polished, and they're meant to help you with calming, and you can place them on the chest, and they help you sort of stabilize your vagus nerve. I've got a view of it's going to be something like that, but Claude note functionality. I could probably take a bite out of that if it was made of licorice, maybe.
Yeah. The vagus nerve, is that like something to do?
It runs from your gut to your brain. We can do that in a separate side podcast if you want.
That's our other podcast. Okay,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Good. Yes. So essentially, this is coming at some stage in the future, and there's a lot of kind of build up to it. But yes, it remains to be seen what it is going to be about. Next up, we've got Claude Opus 4.5. Now, we did mention this last week, but I felt that we kind of glossed over it because somebody was a little bit giddy I think, about Gemini 3. So yeah, the 4.5, Claude Opus 4.5, which is their big chunky thinking model, apparently is better as on the benchmarks than Gemini 3. So Gemini 3 came out and then was instantly trumped by 4.5. Now, I've been trying to do a project, which is basically rebuilding a website for Model Prop. And I kind of got all these four different, the four different kind of key models. So I used Opus 4.5, I used Gemini 3, used ChatGPT 5.1, and also just used Manus as well. So threw that in. And gave them exactly the same instructions to go look at our website, redevelop it, blah, blah, blah. And it is really, really clear that Gemini 3 and Opus 4.5 absolutely smashed it. They literally built websites literally within a few minutes. So, anybody out there that builds websites, don't worry, these weren't really good ones and didn't have half the creativity that you guys will deliver. But just the simple fact that actually it managed to build something using code that actually worked and actually was broadly our brand and broadly what we were looking to do was phenomenal. So it was a test, but yes, these two models, Gemini 3 and Claude Opus 4.5, seem to be way.
Did you use 5.1 Max?
What did I use? I think I threw it into. I didn't use Max. No, I threw it into agent mode in the end because it was just coming back with nonsense. So I was just trying to kick it up a gear. But it was in the. I think I've got the Pro plan, so it was kind of the big punchy, chunky one. But yes, anyway, to the point, 4.5 seems like it's really, really good. I think particularly it's great at the coding side, as we've seen. But yeah, have you kind of had a little dabble?
I've not had chance. I know we talked about it very briefly as it launched, and you were, as you say, mid hype cycle on Gemini 3 at that stage. And what I have done is I've used Gemini 3 quite intensively since, and especially Gemini 3 within Nano Banana for quite a lot of sort of infographics and process mapped and whiteboarding, and I'm just repeatedly blown away by what it can do, and also its depth of reasoning that Gemini is producing now with 3. What I have read quite a lot about is that like Claude Opus 4.5 is really good at specific benchmarks, and especially around the coding is really knocking things out of the park. But some of the other areas it seems to be lacking slightly, but it moves more towards that point that we've made previously. Is sometimes you choose the model for specific tasks and specific roles of work that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, specialization, absolutely. And yeah, I think that they're kind of diverging a little bit, or all of them are kind of moving away from each other into different areas. But yes, and we could spend another 20 odd minutes or so talking about Gemini 3 if anybody wants that, or should you can just go and listen to last week's, it'll be fine. But yeah, so I just think that what this constantly shows is that it just keeps getting better. And there was a time, probably about a year and a half ago, when everyone was going, our scaling law is still going to carry on, is everything still going to be able to get better? And it's like, yes, it's all fine, it's still going on. So that's been really, really good. Couple more stories, particularly around the sort of frontier labs and what's going on there. And we've got Anthropic, which is Claude's owner, the maker of Claude, the CEO, a guy called Dario Amodei, has been called to testify before Congress because they released a report that basically said they'd been attacked by a Chinese AI that was using Claude to then kind of go off and do multiple attacks on other kind of infrastructure within the US. And I think Anthropic is one of the labs that's really good at telling it like it is, actually being really honest about what's going on. It was honest, in the past about Claude itself kind of being a bit misaligned and starting to be a bit devious. And so they've been working on that. And this must be happening in the rest of the labs, but they're just not telling us. But yeah, this kind of came out, I think, a week and a half ago. And yeah, they're going to, so Amodei is going to have to go and explain exactly what's been happening. But it does kind of bring to the surface that there is this kind of espionage, there is this tension. And America, again, allegedly, if you believe what he said, blah, blah. But I think that's going to be a big feature of the next few years, isn't it?
It's key, and you've made the point previously, maybe even several months ago, that whenever you get these new tools, they get used for a bit of frivolity, and then some good use cases come out of them, and then the bad actors move in and start using them for uses of ill repute, I guess. And in the same way that Nano Banana is getting used to create fake passports to a very impressive level. People use these tools as and when they can for things to make them more effective, and this is a good example of that. And as you say, previously they're very open about where the things are going awry, and it's good to see them doing that, even if it has meant they've turned up giving evidence in court.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we've got Perplexity. So this is a tool that actually uses all the different models. So it will choose to use Claude or choose to use ChatGPT or whatever, depending on the circumstance, or you can specify it. But it was going really, really, really well, wasn't it? Up until about sort of maybe even 3 months ago. And it started to tail off a bit. I read that actually it's lost kind of 80% of its downloads of its app. And that was this week. So it's something that I know people who started very early really really love, and it changed how they were searching for things. And now ChatGPT has got search, and others have got search. Perplexity does seem to have fallen a little bit by the wayside, but they've just developed something new and have brought in memory for their AI assistants, right?
That's it. So they launched Comet Browser, so that was sort of basically a Chromium browser that with their AI baked into it. As you touched on there, they've used all the other foundational models as to power their assistant previously, and now they've launched the excuse me, the Comet assistant's been had memory added to it as well, so it constantly remembers. But in a lot of times, this is like we see with other foundational models where was it Anthropic only relatively recent added in searching the whole web rather than just its training data, which is something that ChatGPT and Gemini added in maybe 2 years ago now. So you get that alignment on some of these models, don't you? I won't say foundational model because obviously it's built on the others, but to see these other pieces of functionality come in. But that point you make about the 80% drop in downloads is quite stark, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, that really struck home in terms of, because they had been a big part of the conversation, and there was a lot of talk about, whether they were going to get kind of taken over. It's actually whether they're going to be embedded in, the iPhones and things like that. But they do seem to have kind of almost finally, because there's been so much money like thrown at all of these labs, that you're kind of wondering, surely one of them or two of them are going to start to sort of tail off a little bit, because the others are just going so strongly. So yeah, it is interesting to see it kind of paring away. It's never had its own model, and I think that's always been a risk to it, because it hasn't been developing anything in particular. It does sit on top of other providers, and they essentially have just started to eat its lunch a little bit by developing their own search functionality and various other tools that it has got. Yes, it was first out of the blocks with Comet, as you say, but then since then, we've got Atlas from ChatGPT. Google's Chrome has improved itself and plugged Gemini into that as well. So it's all starting to kind of converge around them. But yes, still, they are still a player, and there are still a lot of people that I know that really really love them. So we'll see how they develop going forwards. And right, final story on our AI and tech news is about Elon Musk again. His ex AI, which is another one of the frontier labs, is closing in on a 15 billion funding round in December. So again, another really, really, really chunky bit of change that is going into AI. A lot of this seems to be just around him, and the fact that he can kind of call on call on all of this amount of money from various people, because it's difficult to see. I think personally it's difficult to see him breaking out of the kind of Twitter sphere / X sphere, or whatever they call it, because anybody that I know who's actually running a business is never going to use Grok, because it doesn't you don't know where it goes. So there's some security issues, and it always seems to champion whatever Musk is thinking rather than what may or may not be factually correct, right?
Well, he needed to raise some money to help pay his 1 trillion new pay packet, didn't he?
Very true. Yeah. So yeah, I just find it astonishing, because there was the big thing a couple of weeks back where if you asked Grok, his language model, anything about who's the best at basketball, then it would always say Elon Musk, and it would find some reason to say Elon Musk. It was insane. And like, say, like, you compare him with Cristiano Ronaldo, who's the best at football, and I go, oh well, actually, because Elon Musk could find some creative ways to get the ball in the net. It's like, no, that's just stupid. But it just goes to show that essentially he can just press a button and it will change whatever the output is. So yeah, it's difficult to see it as being mainstream kind of trustworthy engine. However, if you want to be sworn at, or make some very dodgy pictures, then it's all there. You can go and fill your boots. All right, that is the end of our AI and tech news for this week, and we're going to dip into our tool of the week. Meta has not troubled our conversation very often recently, Matt, but I'm actually quite impressed by this particular tool that they've been working on. It's actually the third iteration of it. So it's called SAM, which is Segment Anything Model. SAM 3. And essentially, it solves a real problem that has been a problem for a long time, which is how do you, with a moving image, so a video, how do you actually segment out bits of it so that you can just, say, for example, one of the examples they give is like penguins running along the shore. So you can actually get rid of the background and just have the little penguins dancing about and running around. And then you can put whatever backdrop on it you like. It's really hard to consistently pull out the penguins and their wings and all that sort of stuff. But Segment Anything model, SAM, from Meta is really, really insanely good at that. So, if you're thinking about how, you might be able to, you've got videos of properties and things like that, to actually be able to color the sky a different color, for example, one of those very kind of early things that is relatively straightforward now, an image, but is not very straightforward when you are doing a video of a property from the front. Now with SAM 3, you're going to be able to actually pull out the property itself from the video and then do something different with the skyline. So I think this is going to be once it becomes a bit more mainstream.
It certainly looks quite impressive in the example videos that they've provided on the website. And as you say, I'm sure there's some really good use cases for it in our industry.
Yeah, 100%. Good. All right, that's our tool of the week. We have just enough time, Matt. You'll be delighted to hear for our weird AI. Now, this is in the same vein as the fingernail one, with the fingernail AI and the shave with the razor AI. And this one, Matt, is all about balding. So there is a story this week that essentially My Hair AI is the name of the AI, and essentially this is going to allow you to find ways to deal with that balding using AI. I wonder, Matt, is this interesting to you?
I think it'd probably been interesting to me maybe 20, 25 years ago when I was still in Leeds and going to the barber on Hyde Park. Then maybe someone flagging that to me then might have helped. Although I don't think I had the money that this guy had to buy whatever supplements they've got. But despite what people think, I've not yet jetted off to foreign shores to try get plugs to resolve my hairline issues. Although, is it an issue when you embrace it in the way I have?
That's right, but you still haven't actually confirmed where you are going.
Yeah,
You're at the
and I'm not
airport.
going to deny or confirm if I come back with brighter than white teeth and a new Scouse fro that is hereditary for me, then maybe that'll be the way.
Please do that. Okay, so that is our weird AI of the week. All right, well, listen, that is all we've got time for, not least because I'm losing my voice. But look, thank you so much for being with us this week, Matt. That was really, really good. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm pleased. I was trying to mute and unmute as rapidly as I could as people were bouncing around the room. So hopefully it wasn't too painful for people to listen to.
It was really good, and thank you very much for joining us from your travels. You are off to Dubai, I think, aren't you?
I hope that's if that's the case. It feels a bit like Blind Date. Is that the one where they'd say at the end where they were heading off to? Thank you, Mal. I'll go find a flight there now.
So showing your age, man. All right, well, listen, great to catch up. Safe travels. We will see you again next week. Thank you for everybody for listening in, and we will also catch up with you in a few days' time. All the best.
Wonderful.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.